All right, and welcome. And as promised, we have Atlantic County Commissioner. One of them, we have Mr. Andrew Parker the third. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. So, first things first, would you please introduce yourself and tell us what your job is as Atlantic County Commissioner?
My name is Andrew Parker. First and foremost, I am a husband and a father of three. I have a son who just graduated college, 24 years old, and I have a my middle daughter is a senior in high school going into college next year and trying to figure out where she's going. And my youngest is in eighth grade. I'm also a school teacher. I've been teaching in the city of Atlantic City for, I want to say 14, 15 years now. And
Okay.
Got involved in the politics and first started out, well, just to rewind just a little bit, I got involved in government. Let's say that years ago. I spent about 10 years, about a decade on the zoning board of adjustment in Egg Harbor Township, just getting involved behind the scenes and on one of those boards, an appointed board. And then at one point was asked to run for township committee in Egg Harbor Township. I ran for that seat when Sonny McCullough decided and Frank Finnerty decided they weren't going to run for reelection, and became the first African American to serve on Township Committee in Egg Harbor Township. Since then, we've had another, Ray Ellis, who's now been voted in as the current deputy mayor. Um, when I left the Township Committee, I ran for the third district seat at for as the Atlantic City, Atlantic County at that time was Atlantic County freeholders. During that race, it switched to commissioners, and so we've been commissioners since. There was a little bit of controversy in terms of the election that year, and it was contested with just my race, where there were some ballots that weren't counted right, and so forth, so forth. And went all the way to the courts. We battled in court, and then we were put into a re-election, and during that re-election, I won pretty convincingly. Then went into another election and won that re-election pretty convincingly as well. So I'm serving on my second term in the county commissioners board, and next year I will be not this year coming up, but the following year I'll be up for re-election yet again. My job on the county commissioner is pretty uh, I shouldn't say basic, but our job is to legislate. That's the first job that we have is legislation. So anything that needs to be legislative on the county government side, that's us. Um, we legislate. We approve the budget of the executive, and all the departments send their budgets to the executive. The executive puts a budget together for us, and we either approve or don't approve or make amendments or no, don't make amendments or adjustments to the executive's budget on running the county. And the only other major function that we have is investigative. So as a commissioner, we have investigative authority. So if anything's going on inside of the county, one of the hot topics lately has been the ACUA. And so we had to remind the ACUA and the county executive that and other folks that the commissioners board's authority is absolutely to investigate anything that we deem necessary that affects county government, and we don't need anyone's consent or authority to do so.
Okay. All right. Um, when you were running or when you run, what is your major platform? What are you running on?
My major platform I'm running on, first and foremost, I think anybody that knows me knows I'm all about constituent services. So my numbers out there, even though people keep telling me, I keep being, advised by some of my mentors out here to stop putting my actual phone number out there and leave my office number, have them leave a message at the office, and then have the office call me, and then I'll get back to them. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm old school. That whole middle person in the communication, by the time someone does that, I'm waiting for someone to call the office and maybe get someone, maybe not get someone, maybe get a machine. And then that person has to have it in their mind to call me and then inform me. And then I got to call the other person. It's just it's an extra step that when you're dealing with county government, there's a lot going on that people don't understand that never even know is going on in county government. It's a lot of information to keep up on. So for me, if I don't get on it, I tell people all the time, if it, they're like, how do you keep up with all this stuff? I said, listen, if I don't get on it right away, I'm liable to forget it. So
Okay.
for me, when something comes in, I gotta handle it as soon as it comes across my desk because more things continue to come on my desk. It doesn't stop. So if I don't take care of it when it comes in, then I'll fall drastically behind, and I don't want to do that. So constituent services, I tell everybody, if you give me a call, within 48 hours, you'll get a call back from me. More than likely, within 24 hours, you'll get a call back from me, and I may not have the answer that you want. I may not even have anything really of intelligence to add to that topic that you're calling about to discuss, but I will within the 48 hours. So within 48 hours, I'll do my investigative work. I'll get the professionals on the line to give me the information that I need. I'll dig in as much as I can, and I'll get back to the constituents with something. Even if it's not the completion of something, that's at least moving in a direction. So constituent services is everything to me. I think it's a government in America where of the people for the people, and I think sometimes we forget that falls. Um, it kind of falls behind in priorities for some reason in today's politics, and our elected officials begin to believe that we are the bosses, I guess, or sitting in a position of authority. And it's not that we're not in a position of authority, but I think it's important that we remind ourselves that we work for the people. And so, you know, to not return a phone call or not answer someone, even if it's something that I don't agree with or believe in, to me, it's just incomprehensible that we have some of our elected officials that act that way. So I try not to be that way. So constituent services. Another thing that I run on, making sure that, again, a big part of our job is the budget. So making sure that that budget that we pass in Atlantic County is as lean as we can possibly get it, you know, because the impact of that I see in going as I look at different cities, not only throughout this county, but in different counties, and how one county, one city, or one municipality may be doing a little bit better than another municipality, or maybe healthier in certain regards and certain aspects than another. A lot of it comes down to that budget, and so mismanaging that budget can have a huge, huge impact on people's lives, on their everyday lives, whether your trash gets picked up on time, whether people enjoy their jobs at the municipal offices, whether people answer the phones like I just got finished talked about, when you call over to any of our departments at the municipal offices or the county offices, that it matters, and so keeping that budget lean and making sure we're spending the money on the things that are continuing to move our county and our municipalities forward, and having that forward thinking mindset. Because listen, as we hear all the time from our executive, we are the second poorest county in the state of New Jersey, and a lot of people don't realize that. So we're not working with a whole lot of money. So we have to figure out how to do a whole lot with little, if that makes sense. So that's a major, major, major focus of mine when I'm running, making sure that we're doing that. We're spending money wisely, and in the budget, it's important that we can show taxpayers that we're working as hard as we can to bring their taxes down, and doing whatever we can to minimize the tax increases, and if at all possible, stay flat, or even and as the county has done the last few budgets I've voted on, lower taxes a little bit
Okay.
for our residents.
All right. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Light. We're here talking to Commissioner from Atlantic County, Andrew Parker III. Being a person of color in Atlantic County, how did you wind up on the Republican Party ticket?
Well, listen, if we're gonna go down that route, we got to go way back in the history and start talking about, post Civil War, and how the majority of African Americans post Civil War with the abolishment of slavery were joined the Republican Party. And then, because of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which were very favorable amendments uh, to our people at that time. And then going into the early 20th century, um, where you know you had the Republican parties was the Republicans Party in their commitment to civil rights had kind of waned a little bit, So it started around 1920s. It started to wane a little bit because of the Republican stance on civil rights at that time. And then around the 1960s, early 1960s, 1964, in that area, it really, is when it solidified the switch from African Americans being Republican to mostly being Democrat. So it was our original party of choice when we had a choice, and even going into Reconstruction, which in my view was one of the most prosperous times for African Americans in showing the building of our communities, our ability to build our communities. And we're talking coming fresh out of slavery, the fact that we had our people, forefathers and foremothers who had the ability with very little education, with very little resources, to be able to build the way that they were able to build so quickly during Reconstruction is pretty amazing. And so that Black exceptionalism is what I like the part of history that I like to shine and highlight, not just in my politics but also in my teaching as an educator. So I truly believe the Republican Party is the party. How should I say this? The party was at its core. We were at the foundation of the building of that party, deeply at the foundation of that party. Now, when it started to shift, we did, and like I said, from the early 19, the early um, uh, 20th century, going into the 1960s, because of civil rights, we've made that switch, letting the Republican Party know that if the Republican Party stops supporting the type of policies that positively impact the African American community, that the message for our leaders then was that we were willing to switch parties, and that was something that we were willing to do if they if we ever felt like we were being taken for granted, the way that we felt we were being taken for granted at that time period. And so that's what originally, got me into the Republican Party and looking at conservative values. And then as I started to get involved like I said, I was involved in the zoning board out here in Egg Harbor Township. Egg Harbor Township is a Republican-run municipality. And so right now there are 5 township committee members on Egg Harbor Township, and all 5 of them are Republican. So my involvement to the local government was from my hometown, where you know it's Republican run. And you know how things go. If you want to get something done, sometimes it's really tough to get things accomplished and get things done inside of the minority party, no matter which party that is.
Right.
And so I wanted to be able to get some things done, and so I joined a team of people that were getting things done. Now, I did try the Democrat Party. I will be honest. I did when I first started thinking about getting involved in politics. I said, wait a minute, before I do this, let me go sit on the other side, because for years, I had already been going to the Republican meetings because I was on zoning board and things of that nature. And I was coaching football and coaching sports. And so I was always around, that party. Being invited, having my teams invited to township committee meetings when we went to championships and going. So I was already engaged in relationships with that side, but there wasn't a real heavy presence of a Democrat Party in Egg Harbor Township. So I started making it a point at that when I was asked to run for office, I made it a point to start going to those meetings just to see what was on the other side. And at the time, my supervisor at work was running for office, Grace Birch was her name, and she was running for office at the time, and I think she was running for mayor against Sonny McCullough. And so I went to a couple of those meetings and sat in on a few of those meetings. And I'm going to be honest with you, there wasn't a whole lot happening inside of those meetings, and the things that they were talking about inside those meetings were were small issues in comparison to the kind of conversations that I was hearing on the other side. Where we were talking about cutting taxes and hiring cops and making sure that there's diversity within our police department. Those are the kind of conversations that I could have on the Republican side where people that were sitting in positions of power could hear me and were able to do something about the conversation once we had it. Having those conversations in the Democrat Party in Ann Arbor Township was, nothing was going to happen after the meeting. And for me, that was a tough one. I wanted to be able to get something done. So that's kind of the long and the short of how I became a Republican. But now, as the more I've gotten into it and more I've grown up as an adult, I do have some very conservative values, particularly fiscally. I do believe in fiscal responsibility. I'm not as conservative socially as some. I believe everybody has the right to kind of pretty much do whatever they want as long as they're not infringing on the rights of someone else.
Right.
So I don't concern myself with how someone identifies or chooses to identify. That's not my call. That's
Right.
not my position. That's not my position to say that. It's
Right.
not my position to say who you love or who you want to spend the rest of your life with. That has absolutely nothing to do with me, and I don't believe politicians have a place there. That's something that individual people have. They have to make that decision for themselves.
Right.
So as long as what you're doing doesn't infringe on the freedoms and the rights of your neighbors, of the people that are surrounding you, then I say Godspeed. And I think that makes me a little bit more liberal than many of my conservative friends on
Okay.
the social side. But on the fiscal side of things, as you heard me say with the budget, I'm definitely someone who believes in smaller government,
Okay.
tax, you know, less taxes, give people more of their money in their pockets to spend their money. This country wasn't founded. If you think about how our country was founded from the beginning, the whole concept of America was fighting against the British because they didn't want their unfair taxes
Right.
being paid
Taxation without
to great
representation.
taxation without representation at the founding of America. So I believe in that. I believe in that, even to this day. And I'm saying that with me sitting here as an elected official, I still believe in that.
Right.
So I believe the only power we have as elected officials is the power that the people allows us to have.
Okay.
And when you see that balance, you know, go astray a little bit, it's because the people fell asleep at the wheel and
Hmm.
allowed politicians to lose their way.
Okay. All right. You may have already answered this, but I always ask people this based on their party. Being a county commissioner, it's your job to serve everyone, all the people, including Democrats and people who vote Democrat. Do you have a particular message or something you can share with people because of their party affiliation may never vote for Andrew Parker, but you still have to serve them?
Well, listen, I think my reputation is starting to to take forward in terms of my political um, involvement. I'm a very when you look at our politicians and look at a politician or a government official, it's so easy to only look at them as their party.
Right.
But we're more than that. You got to unpeel that onion just a little bit because there's layers behind there that need to be told. So, for example, I'm like I said, I'm a teacher. So most teachers, particularly in the state of New Jersey, we think of as being Democrat. I'm
Right.
very involved in our union, our NJEA. I'm very involved. I'm not one of those Republicans or conservatives that opt out of the union. I'm the legislative action team chair for the city of Atlantic City. I'm very
Wow.
involved
Okay.
on the I'm very involved on so all the elections, whether it's Democrat or Republican or whatever, it's my union job to make sure whoever the union endorses, it's my job to kind of help on the ground to get ground support to get their message out there. So
Right.
oftentimes it's the tougher conversation that I have is not you know do I represent Democrats? The tougher conversation for me that a lot of people don't see is work on my end because a lot of times I'll have conservatives that, you know, look at me. I don't know. I don't know if they completely trust me. I guess I'll put it that way because I do have responsibilities on the union side, and when I put my union hat on, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a union legislative action team representative, and I'm going to do
Right.
that job.
Right.
I'm not going to do it as a Republican. I'm going to do it as a member.
Right.
And so if we endorse a Democrat, then it's my job to organize a team around that, to make phone calls, to knock on doors. So that becomes complicated. So dancing between those worlds for me is a real is a challenge, you know,
Right.
because at times people that are on my team, it's a Re- Republican team, or they'll look at me like, well, what are you doing over there helping them? Listen, what do you want me to tell you? This is my job. This is what I'm doing, and I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability.
Right.
So I think that's more of the challenge in terms of constituents calling me up, whether they're Democrat, Republican, white, black, LGBTQ. Listen, IA plus, or I get calls all the time. I get invited to things all the time, and I think my record shows. If you follow me on social media, or follow me, um, uh, the things that I show up to, and the things that I've helped. I've helped a wide range of things. You know what I mean? I don't just show up to Republican events. I show up to places where the Republicans are saying, "Well, what were you doing there?" Well, I was invited.
Right.
Or the
Right.
Dems might say, "What are you doing here?" I was invited.
Right.
you know I'm gonna, if I'm invited and I can make it, I'll show up because those are taxpayers, like you said, and residents of the county.
Oh, excuse me. If you're just tuning in, this is The Light, and we're here with Andrew Parker III, who is the Atlantic County Commissioner. He serves on the board. He's in the middle of his second full term. Is there anything that you would like to discuss that I failed to ask you about?
Yeah, there is some things I want to talk about because, and I know this is going to be a little controversial, but I'm going to put it
Uh-oh.
out there.
Okay.
I'm going to well, listen. You need ratings, and so I'm going to try and get you some of those ratings.
Oh, okay.
and I have this, I guess, calling to speak truth. And for
Okay.
those who know me, whether my fraternal brothers, or there are times when people, the folks that say they don't like Andrew Parker, are the ones that don't like the fact that I'm not willing to lie for them through convenience, if that makes any
Okay.
sense.
All
I'm not
right.
the guy. I'm not the guy you call for that. So what I will say is that um, we just had a presidential election,
Yes.
and I have done everything in my power to stay in touch with, um, um, have build relationships with people, Republicans, Democrats, across the aisle. In the state level, on the federal level, on whether it's Congressman Van Drew or whomever it is.
Right.
Um, it because my main concern is that I'm able to pick up the phone or send an email and have a conversation that may help the residents of Atlantic County. It doesn't
Right.
matter who's in office.
Right.
So I've been pretty busy behind the scenes for everybody to know since the election, because a promise made is a promise kept, is what we hear all often.
Right.
And so I was a little bit concerned when I saw some of the appointments post election, and I saw there was a lack of, and I'm going to use the word diversity, even though I know that that's not a, I don't know, that word may be stricken, I don't know, a source of controversy. There was
Right.
now,
Right.
which I don't understand. I don't understand that part of it. I don't understand that, and I'm not going to say anything against the president or where he's going. I'm going to say I don't understand where he's going at the moment with when it
Right.
comes to
Right.
diversity.
Okay.
And but what I will do is I'm leaving it open for time, and I know that he has. I see you later, and I know that he has met with some of the Congressional Black Caucus Republicans, and he talked about the fact, and one of the things that I've spoken about was record-breaking numbers from the minority community voted for this president, for a Republican. And that's not just due to him, that's due to grassroots organizations and grassroots efforts by people like myself and others that are down here on the ground, going to these minority communities, going to the Democrat communities, going to the Black people and saying, listen,
Right.
one, know your history, and two, how do you like life since 1960, 1964? How have things been for us? Do we feel we're progressing along and our communities are well served, or are we underserved and frustrated? You know, you listen to some of the folks talk out in Chicago. I was listening to a city council meeting out in Chicago before the election, and those folks were beyond upset. You know, they were beyond upset and they were frustrated, and they said enough is enough. And they even said it right there to their elected officials. They said, "You think you're in charge, but we're going to show you you're not charged because you watch. We're going to vote all of you out of office. Every last one of you will get voted out of office. Boom, boom, boom." And so it was that kind of message. Now
Right.
you
Right.
see, now you see the results in this past election where minorities did. They swung over to the Republicans in
Right.
record-breaking numbers.
Right.
Over 100% gain from 19 from the 2020 election to the 2024 election for
Right.
Republicans.
Right. Right.
What does that look like now? How do we return that investment to those folks in that community with policies, with with uh, appointments? I guess that's already done. So
Right.
but how do we return that investment to those folks to say thank you, as he promised at that meeting? The president promised at that meeting that he recognized those numbers and the
Right.
efforts, and that he would not forget them, and that he would absolutely repay those folks that came over and voted for him from
Right.
communities that he didn't expect.
Right.
What I'm hearing right now from the people in the community, whether Democrat, Republican, voted for Republican, didn't vote for Republican, Independent, they don't feel that that's happening in the present.
Right.
So from the end of the election to now, I'm not hearing a lot of African Americans saying, "Well, we can see that he appreciates us. We can see why you told us to vote Republican, why you kept telling us all those years to try something different." What I'm hearing now is, yeah, you Black Republicans told us to come over to the other side, and now look what we're dealing with. You got me to
Okay.
vote for the guy. You got me to vote for this
Right.
guy, and now look. So
Right.
that's what I'm just being honest. That's what I'm hearing. You
Okay.
know,
All right.
so so that kind of language is not healthy. It's
Yeah.
not healthy for any of us because
Right.
you know that you and I both know that in campaigns the pendulum swings. So one year you're up, the
Yes.
next year you're down. The
Yes.
next election you're down.
And
So
the
what we
midterms are coming.
that's right. Then the midterms are coming, and so we have to be mindful of that. So when I speak to Jack Ciattarelli, who's the front runner for the Republicans for governor, these are the kind of things that I talk to Jack about. Like,
Okay.
Jack, listen, what are we going to do here? Like, what's our message going to be? Now, Jack's working his tail off doing barbershop tours up in North Jersey, going into the minority community. He's been working his tail off for months now, trying to to
Right.
to, to deliver that message.
Right.
So my concern is, how do we bridge this gap in the message so that people don't say, "Listen, I don't, I love you, Republican Andrew Parker, I love you, Republican Jack Ciattarelli, I love you, Republican whomever," but what we see coming from the federal side, don't. Please refrain from ever asking me
Right.
to vote for Republican again. So
Oh, okay. So this is what
that's
I can
that's
tell
that's a
you.
concern.
Uh, the way I do my show, uh, I don't offer a lot of straight up commentary uh, about certain aspects of politics.
Hmm.
You and I have talked politics off the air, so you have an idea of what I think and why I invited you
Absolutely,
to be on the show.
absolutely.
Um, so what I will say is uh, somewhere down the line,
Hmm.
I will have a panel, a diverse panel of Republicans, Democrats, and not a shouting match or screaming match or even a debate, but flat out questions. And I'll make sure that I bring up that topic so that
Absolutely.
it can be discussed because I think it needs to be discussed in
Absolutely.
a intelligent way for voters and listeners to dissect. But I do thank you
Absolutely.
for bringing it up because you raise an interesting question. And like I said, I'll comment about it off the air. Listen, his name is Andrew Parker III. He is the Atlantic County Commissioner, and he is in the middle of his second term. So you're up again in 26?
I'm up again in 26. Yes, sir.
Okay. And how can your constituents get in contact with you if they want to contact you?
The easiest way to contact me, of course, social media. Follow me on social media. I'm on. I try not to do as much on there because, listen, over the years, you know, social media tends to get hacked and all kind of crazy stuff, and you
Right.
can't control that. And when it gets hacked, you can't get it back. So I've been through a lot of that, and it always happens during campaign season for some reason with me. Someone hacks
Okay.
me during campaign season. But I'm on social media, so I'm on Facebook. I try to put as much information out there on Facebook as I possibly can, things that are local, that local people, particularly jobs and employment and careers and stuff like that. So you can contact me on Facebook, befriend me on there. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. But the best way to get in contact with me, of course, is through the county. You can go over to the county office building, call over to the county office, and they'll put you right to my line. If you don't get me directly that day, you can leave a message, and that message will come right to me. And that's the best way to get in contact with me. So contact the county office or go through my social media. If you have any problems, concerns, any anything, any ideas on making our county a better place, give me a call. I'll sit down and talk to anybody about anything.
Okay. All righty. I thank you for your time. And I want to say the door is always open for you to come back and discuss whatever is on your mind. I appreciate you.
Anytime.
Thanks a lot.
I appreciate you having me on.